Well, good evening and welcome. Welcome to I Am One, where I am one with the Creator and one with myself. I want to just talk about your mystical journey, your religious journey, your spiritual journey, whatever title you want to give it. I want to talk about it because I think many of us are starting to, I don't want to use the word wake up. I think we've used that word so much that it's just been so diluted and it has so many different meanings and connotations and all that. So I don't want to use that term per se, but I want to know where you are in your journey to find peace and understanding with who you are, who Creator is, who God is to you. I want to have that conversation, but in having that conversation, I want to give you a little backdrop. I was watching this series on Hulu, and it's called The Bear. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you watch it. It's this it's centered around food, but it's not a foodie per se kind of series or drama. But the storyline is there's a brother who had a restaurant, and he comes from a family of cooks. And so he had the restaurant, and it's based in Chicago. Had a restaurant, and he ended up killing himself. And his younger brother, who wanted to work with him in the restaurant, he wouldn't allow him to do it. But when he killed himself, he turned the restaurant over to his brother, his younger brother. And his younger brother had gone off. He went to culinary school, and he got these accolades and awards and whatnot, and working at these fancy restaurants. And so, getting the word that his brother had passed away, he came to take over the restaurant. Now, the restaurant was like a beef joint. So, Italian beef is, if you know anything about Chicagoland area, Italian beef in this neck of the woods, it's very, very, it's a big deal. And so that was the kind of, it wasn't a sit down restaurant, but it was more of a fast food joint where they were well known in the area. People came to them. And when the younger brother got there, he took over and he wanted to change it. He wanted to make it more upscale. He wanted to make it more of a dining type restaurant and introduce other things. So he wanted to take it into that kind of area, but he met resistance from the people who had been there with his older brother all those years. They had a connection, they had a bond, they had a system, and not necessarily a working system, but it worked for them. And as long as they still could do what they wanted to do, everything was fine. So this young buck comes in there and he wants to introduce things like a fancy salad or other things that he was used to doing in his other restaurants that he was a part of. And he began to feel resistance. But as he's going on and as he's going on, one of the guys in the restaurant, they called him cousin. Not related to them at all, but he grew up with them in the neighborhood, and he's always been around their family, and so they would call him cousin, and he would call them cousin. But he really had no place except for being a loudmouth and getting in everybody else's way while they were doing their job and handling their responsibilities. And so as the younger brother came in and was starting to make these changes, another young lady came in and she was helping the brother to make changes and to steer the restaurant in a different direction. Anyway, fast forward. So they found out that the brother hid some money, and the business was struggling, and they shouldn't have been open, but they were still open, but they were struggling. And so they realized that the brother had hid some money, and when they found the money, they shut down that restaurant to open up a new one. But cousin was still in the way because what they wanted to do was a new idea, was a new way of the younger brother sent some of the workers to culinary school for just some mentoring, not full fledged culinary school, but for some mentoring, so that when they opened the new restaurant, they would be ready to shine and they would be ready and understand what the game plan was. So the younger brother did the same thing for cousin. He sent him to that culinary school for a week, and they started him off with cleaning the silverware, polishing the forks. Here's where it really got me. They had him polishing the forks. He said that he felt like this was beneath him. He felt like he was being punished. He felt like he was being like the younger brother was getting him out of the way so that they could really get the restaurant together. But he really didn't understand the true essence of why he was there. Why the younger brother, why young cousin would send him there. He just thought he was trying to get him out of the way and he didn't want him in his face. So during that 1 week of mentoring and training, and he had to start off polishing the forks. And he thought if I just wipe it this way and wipe it that way as a fork, who cares? The guy that was in charge of mentoring him and making him get the big picture kept telling him, "Hey man, you got to take care of this. You can't. This fork isn't acceptable." And cousin is like, "What are you talking about? I wiped off the fork, and it was more. It was more than just wiping off the fork." And at some point, when the head chef kept, they had their little team meeting before they would have service that night, and he kept bringing up the smudge, and he said, "Who's going to own the smudge?" He wanted to know who's going to own the smudge. Nobody said anything, but they knew what he meant. Own the smudge. And cousin, his real name is Richie, but cousin was standing there and he was starting to get it, but he still wasn't on board 100%. But he heard them making so much of a big deal about a smudge. What is the big deal about a streak on the fork? What is the big deal about I wiped the thing off. I have the napkin. I've got the polish. I've wiped the thing off, but yet because there was a smudge on there, they could not put that into service. Because there was a smudge on there, they could not put that fork into service. It was against their policy to present to their clientele, the customers who were coming there, who were on a waiting list to eat at that restaurant for over a year, to finally be able to get in there and sit down and have a meal, to have a fork that had a smudge on it. They could not tolerate that. And the question was, who was going to own the smudge? Now, we know what smudging is, right? You get some Palo Santo or you get some sage and you light it up and you let the smoke go up and down you and all around you and cover you and cleanse you, right? The smudge means a cleansing. Who's going to own the smudge? Own the smudge. But in order to go through that process of cleansing, what do you have to do? You have to admit that there may be something on you. You may have been in a place where you've picked up some negative energy. You may have been doing some spiritual work, and because of the kind of work that you were doing, um, an entity or a spirit that doesn't wish you well may have tried to attach itself to you. And so in order to smudge, you've got to remove that negative energy. You've got to get that quote unquote dirt off of you. In the Christian realm, that would be what? You would call the smudge sin. Falling short, coming short and falling short of the glory of God. So the smudge Christian would be sin. Smudge may be that you realize and recognize you need to be cleansed. You need to have a cleansing. You know that you've been in places, you've been by a lot of people, and they're not like-minded, and so in order to feel your energy back, get your energy back in alignment, you smudge. But in order to smudge, you've got to admit there's something on you. You've got to admit there's something you need to deal with. And that's the other part of smudging. It's not so much about what others have put on you, but it may be what you've allowed to have yourself come into contact with. a whole bunch of ranting and raving. You've put up with a whole bunch of criticism. You've put up with a whole bunch of you're not good enough, and if you would just wear your hair like this, or if you would just wear these types of clothes, if you would just have this sort of demeanor, if you would just buy in and conform. You hear all that kind of stuff and you put up with it, whether it's in your job, whether it's in your family, you're at the mall and you're just bombarded and all this is coming at you and it's on you and you see yourself in the midst of it. And there's a point where you have to admit, I gotta own the smudge. There's you even in admitting your own jealousy, your own insecurities, your own rigid way of thinking, and it's only your way, and nobody else can be right, and you're the only one that can be right. There's a point where you have to come to the reality that you know what? I've been doing this a long time and things aren't working well. And I keep blaming everybody else, but I don't think it's everybody else. I think if I'm doing a real heart to heart, I'm the problem. I got a smudge. I need to own the smudge. Why am I jealous of her? So what she can sing better? So what that she's lighter complexion than I am? So what that her hair is straight and mine's kinky? So what? What is she bringing to the table? She can't bring to the table what you bring to the table. So why are you jealous of her? Why are you jealous of him? Um, that he can grow a beard and you can't. That women fall all over him and nobody's paying you the time of day. Why are you beating yourself up and being jealous and envious to the point where you're bringing yourself down and you're causing yourself to have some depression and self-loathing and then you bring this energy out, well, I know nobody's going to want me, so I'm going to make it easy for them not to want me. And be the biggest butthole and the biggest winch that you can possibly be, just to protect yourself. That is your way of self-preserving yourself, keeping yourself from getting hurt even further, keeping yourself from anybody else knocking you down. Everybody's got to own the smudge. Everybody's got something to clean up. But are you willing to admit it? Are you willing to go toe to toe with yourself? Are you willing to say, yeah, they're bringing some baggage, but I'm bringing baggage too? What am I going to do to fix it? How am I going to make it better? How am I going to bring some common ground? How am I going to wave the white flag so that a relationship can form and prosper and grow? And part of your smudging may be you're going to have to confront some people. That is not okay. I didn't appreciate that. If we're going to have a relationship, I need this, this, and this. This is what I'm willing to bring, but this is what I'm willing to accept. Own the smudge. Can you own it? Will you own it? It's a hard thing to do, especially when you're the one that's usually right. Especially when you have the right answer, but you suck at the execution. You know all the rules and you know all the procedures, but you suck at sharing it and helping somebody execute. Or you suck at executing it yourself. And you can call everybody else out on how they're missing the mark and how they're incompetent and how they're this and that or how they're not this and that. We got to own the smudge. Whatever spiritual path you may be in, walking down, involved with, whether it's a religious practice, just a spiritual practice, whether it's an initiated practice, if you're an eclectic practice, whatever the case may be, there's some owning to do. Some circles that's called shadow work. Because you got to come to grips with the dark side. You got to come to grips with the ugly part of you. Everybody loves your smile. You can come in and light up a room and make everybody laugh while you're broken on the inside because you won't address what's really going on behind the closed door. You won't address that you need help. You won't address that you need to reach out to someone for some guidance, for some discipline, for someone to mentor, somebody to just be a listening ear. To agree with them. Nobody's even telling you to like them. But you're so stuck in your way. You're so stuck on your own God complex that you can't bring yourself down just for a second. You can't get off of your throne just for a second to own your own shit, to clean up the smudge that's all over you. It's not just in your hair. It's not just on your face. It's not just on your arms. It's not just on your chest. It's all over you. But you're afraid to own it because it's beneath you. You're afraid to own it because then you become vulnerable. Ah! And to you, that means to be weak. To you, that may mean that you have to depend on somebody. And heaven forbid you have to depend on anybody to do anything. And I get it. If I got to ask you more than once, if I got to feel like I'm begging you and pleading you to do just one simple thing, yeah, I'm better off doing it myself. Just keeping my mouth shut and doing it myself. But what does that do? It's only stroking your ego. It's only giving you that self-fulfilled prophecy that says nobody else cares enough. Nobody else cares as much as I do. Because if they did, they wouldn't let it look like this. If they did, they wouldn't let it amount to this. If they did, they'd clean the forks. Own the smudge. Yep, it hurts, but you're better off on the other side of it. It is uncomfortable, but you're better off on the other side of it. And I tell you, it's even easier for you to genuinely and honestly smudge yourself than to have somebody else smudge you. And sometimes we do need somebody else to smudge us because we'll rub, but we won't rub and get deep. We'll just rub the surface, but somebody else can really rub you deep. And that's only because you won't do the hard work for yourself. You love everybody. You care for everybody. You break your back trying to please everybody. And to make sure that they're happy, to make sure that they're comfortable, to make sure that things are going well for them, that their needs are being met, that their goals are being met, that the mission is being accomplished for them. But you're not doing it for yourself. And you can't do it for yourself, and it won't happen for you until you own the smudge. Some of you, I'm going to say this, some of you, you want to experiment in other things religiously or spiritually. You want to. But you are so afraid of what somebody else is going to say about you if you do. You want so badly just to see, but you're afraid that that label of backslider is going to be attached to you. You're so afraid that somebody's going to say you're on your way to hell because you are adventurous enough to try. And it doesn't mean you're going to stay there. But you don't know what you don't know until you find out you don't know. But the only way you're going to find out you don't know is by trying something different. And you may even find this isn't so much different from what I'm already doing, already practicing, already working on, already involved in. They just give it another name. They just meet over here instead of over there. They just leave you alone and allow you to experience what you need to experience for you. Ooh, encourage you to validate yourself, to uh, to confirm and affirm yourself. They encourage you not to beat yourself up. Own the smudge. Some of us can't own it because that means we may have to isolate. We may have to be by ourselves. We may find that the people we really want to hang out with aren't the best people for us to really hang out with. And it's not because they're bad and they're addicted to drugs or anything like that, that they're uh, breakers of the law or anything like that. It's just that the vibration, the level of vibration, the level of energy that you're trying to operate in, they're not ready to go there. But if you own your smudge, you have to make that decision. You have to have that come to Jesus moment. Owning the smudge may look like you're hanging out with people you never thought you would hang out with before because you were told we can't do this and we can't do that and we can't go here and we better not be caught there. And yet those very people are the ones building you up. Not because they want something from you, but they see what's in you and they want to see it shine. They want to see you flourish. They want to see it come out of you. They've been waiting to see it, and you're the one to bring it. Own the smudge. I grew up in Christianity, in and out of church all my life. There was Methodist, father is Baptist. We went to holiness churches, Pentecostal churches, Church of God in Christ. We've been there, done that. ah, I was a youth minister, youth pastor. Been there, done that. Yet this path that I'm on right now, I've been doing so much smudging. What's that scripture talks about? Purge me with hyssop and I'll be whiter than snow. I ought to be white as snow. As much purge, as much purging that I've been going through. But that's part of the smudge. And let me say this: just because I don't identify as Christian anymore doesn't mean I turn my nose up to Christians. It doesn't mean I'm right and you're dead wrong. And that was part of the smudge for me too. The way religion has taught us. That's what Christianity has taught us. If you're a Baptist, then Baptists aren't as good as the Methodists. Methodists aren't good or if you're Pentecostal, everybody's going to hell because the only ones that are going to heaven are the Pentecostals or the technically the Church of God in Christ. Those are the only ones who will be saved. And what was that? What's the other religion? What's the other denomination? Jehovah's Witnesses. Only 144,000. All this crazy stuff that we have been taught. So what? You're a Christian. Being a Christian isn't good enough because if you're not the right kind of Christian, it's all in vain. Giving your life to Jesus and I'm free, and whom the Son sets free is free indeed. And yet you're still trapped because you're afraid to say boo. You're afraid if you look over here, you're going to cause somebody to lust. You're afraid that if you tap your finger or snap your finger to the wrong kind of music, you are in big trouble. And you're always smudging there, but not for the right reason. You're not smudging because you're free. You're smudging because you're afraid. You live in fear that if I make one wrong move and the sky cracks, I'm lost. I'm not putting you down. I'm just saying that's the experience. That's the truth of the matter. You want to be a Christian? Be a Christian, but be free and be honest in your freedom. It makes me laugh because and sad at the same time because even on some of the I'll listen to a couple of like the comedic principles, and I can get with some of that. I understand where it's coming from, or getting connected with with whatever esoteric, occultism, whatever witchcraft, whatever it is. We always have questions. If I do this, is that the right way? What if, and if somebody gives you a way to do something, well, what if I do this? Will that still uh, give me the same benefit? Will I still see the same thing? Is that okay? Many of us think that we're free because we've come out of Christianity. I'm giving you a heads up, Christians. I'm giving you some ruha right now. Everybody think they leave Christianity that they're really free. They're not. They're just scared in something else. They're scared in witchcraft. They're scared in Buddhism. They're scared in hoodoo and voodoo. They're scared because our minds are still trapped. Why? Because we ain't smudging. Christianity off of you. Because there's some truth in there, and there's some foundation, and there's some pretty strong foundation there. But not everything is what's supposed to be the way that it is. Go research it. But if you're willing to smudge, positive in that. That doesn't mean you have to address yourself as, but you can see the positive in it. It's a positive thing not to go around killing people. It's a positive thing to treat people the way you would want to be treated. It's a positive thing not to go around lying about everything to cover your ass. It's a positive thing to not taking what's not yours. That's a positive thing. Those are positive things that you can grab onto, hold onto, and keep. It's a positive thing not to covet what doesn't belong to you. You want to go work for it, get your own. You want some of it, ask. Until you know, keep on moving. Find a way to get it for yourself. Those are good things. There is nothing wrong with that. Truly smudge. It's okay to grab onto that without claiming a specific name, a specific title, a specific identity. You got witches and Wiccans and a plethora of names and titles and associations. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. Smudge. Then you'll be honest with yourself to say, why am I doing this? Asking yourself, why am I doing this? Why is this so important to me? I'm getting into and researching hoodoo because I'm understanding in my walking away, I wanted to get back to something that was close to what my ancestors did. Not so much the Christianity, but what my ancestors truly had before that was put upon us. Now I know eventually they took it and ran with it, and that's fine. That's what they had. But I wanted to really get back to um, how did my ancestors make it in this land called the United States? How did they make it? And the major part of how they made it and survived was the practice of hoodoo, which is root work, that's another name for it, or conjure. Because they had to hide those practices from the motherland and mix it in with the Christianity that was placed upon them. So they could still practice what they knew, but they could hide it in what was given to them. And eventually those things began to meld and to morph and to almost become one. And for many of them did. It became one and the same. So I get how Christianity is a big part for people of color, black folks in America. I get that. But I wanted to go back to the root. And that's answering a whole bunch of questions for me. I also see some aspects of witchcraft, and I see some aspects. For those of you who follow my YouTube channel, you saw I did tarot cards, and I still do. I don't put it as much up there anymore right now. But I get into divination. I think I've always been a diviner. Just didn't know how to say it or how to put my finger on it to call it what it really was. And some other spiritual gifts. But they've been there all my life. I thought it was just being a good Christian. It's not. That helped me for a while, but that wasn't the genesis of it. The genesis of it, and if you'll be honest with yourself, the genesis of it is in my bloodline. From my mother and my father and my grandparents and great grandparents and so on and so on and so on to the originals, whoever they were, who are now my ancestors. It is that blood that runs in my veins that brings forth those gifts. Christianity for a time helped to cultivate and helped to bring them out. But Christianity wasn't the genesis of it. But getting back to that meant smudging, cleaning off, not everything, just what was not serving me anymore, that was not part of my true purpose. Cleaning it off, removing it, acknowledging it that it did work for a time. Time now to move on. And if I continue to try to hold it, then there's that spot that's on me that is going to be an obstacle. There's that spot on me that's not going to allow me to shine as brightly, as brilliant as I was created to shine. That's what smudging looks like. Again, I'm not coming against anybody's religion, anybody's uh, identity. None of that. But if you can't be your true self in whatever way you're identifying religiously, spiritually, sexually, gender wise, if you cannot be free in how you're identifying yourself, there's some smudging to do. Own the smudge. Here was the second statement that came out of that series. In that specific episode, I believe, why does that matter so much? Why does the smudging matter so much? What's the big deal about the smudging? Why do we pay that much attention? Why do we give so much detail to that? Why are we operating like that? Here's the second one. Because every second counts. Do the work to clean ourselves up, to be as free as we possibly can in this realm. Because every second counts. Every second counts. And if you're going to waste your seconds on somebody else who's not going to care about you, care for you, help to build you, help to affirm you, help to build you up, is a second that you have lost that you won't get back for yourself. Every second counts. Let it count for your freedom. Let it count for your wholeness, for your illumination. Let it count for your divine spirit. Let it count for everything that matters to you. Let it count. But it won't if you're not willing to smudge, if you're too afraid to smudge. That song that played at the beginning, How I Got Over. Love that song. My soul looks back and wonders. That's an old Negro. How I got over. I don't even know how I got from yesterday to today. My soul looks back and wonders. Because it's crazy. I shouldn't be here, but I'm here. How did I get here? How did I get from this to this, from that to this, from that to this to now? My soul, my being, my consciousness looks back and wonders, how did I get here? How did I get over that obstacle? How did I pass that test? How did I make it through that storm? By smudging. Standing that every second counts. And for that time to matter, I've got to make it matter. So with that, I'm going to say good night to you, or good day, whatever time it is that you listen to this. Enjoy your evening, your day, your week. Own the smudge for you. Own the smudge for you. That's the only person you can own it for. It's for you. Every second counts. And with that, peace and blessings to you all.